All right, we are starting today with a very important grocery haul for the chickens, which, if you ask them, is the only grocery haul that actually matters around here. We've got fresh feed, some new pads for their coop area, and a couple things I'm hoping to install today if the day cooperates. But we shall see. Around here, we like to make plans and then immediately see what real life thinks about those plans. But at the very least, the supplies are here and that counts as progress. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Rita. This channel is basically where we hang out while we attempt to keep a house running, bake questionable baking products, take care of small flock of very opinionated chickens, and slowly chip away at homemaking projects one tiny reset at a time. Nothing is ever perfectly aesthetic over here, but it is real life, and that's what we love about it. And if you've been here for a while, thank you, thank you, thank you for continuing to show up every week here and for yourselves. I see the same names in the comments, and it means so much to me. And I just want to give you a loving shout out and lots of hugs and let you know you are appreciated. This little corner of the internet has become such a cozy place to land, and I'm really grateful you're here. And if you're new, come on, introduce yourself in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's watching from and what you're working on. First things first, I would like to get my chickens fed. I just let them out, and I really need to change out these pads before they kick me out. So let's just get started with that, and then we're going to move to the front yard. Are you kicking me out? Okay. Okay, so I got kicked out by chicken, so we're gonna switch gears. We picked these up at Marshall's last night. Are they not gorgeous? They're so pretty. And I'm gonna use these planters for them out in the front. It's gonna look so cute. So I've gotta take this apart and do that. Okay, I'm excited about this. Okay, so now that the chicken groceries are handled, we're going to do a little bit of spring decorating out here by the front door. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make it feel like winter has officially packed up and moved itself out. I always feel like the front entrance sets the tone for the whole house, even if the inside is slightly chaotic. And if the porch looks cheerful, we're doing okay. Now, it was brought to my attention by a close friend of mine that said, "Hey, you haven't decorated the front yard very much lately. Are you okay?" And I thought that was like the most funny um, insight And I always enjoy feedback. So I love that this person said this to me because I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't. What am I thinking? What am I doing? But, I had to give myself some grace because during winter, it's really hard to decorate for the front yard or the porch or what have you, right? So it was kind of fun that the hubs and I were able to go ahead and hit some Marshalls and do a little shopping together last week. And we haven't done this in a while anyway. And we found these amazing, gorgeous cherry blossom trees. I am having an issue keeping them posted up, I will say. I've almost brought out that Flex Seal. Y'all know I love my Flex Seal. To just put a little dot on the bottom of the pot to the concrete, but I didn't want it to like be stuck there forever. So in the meantime, I've sort of just used uh, the zip ties to attach them to anything that was nearby to keep them up. When the wind blows, I've had them knock over multiple times throughout the day because they are top heavy, which I thought was an interesting thing. I think they're more for indoors. I know they look great out here, but I don't know. You tell me. Go ahead and put in the comments below. Do you have an idea that might work? I did try to throw some rocks on top of the potted area of it. It did nothing. It didn't help. I'm still considering the Flex Seal dot of glue on the bottoms. Just a dot. Nothing crazy where it's going to be there forever. I did have well, okay. So speaking of this front area, let me before we move on, I promise I'll stop yammering on here. I've been slowly dreaming up a little project for this space this year. Nothing massive, but I'd love to add a row of pavers across the front of the house here, like under the window, alongside in front of the house, in the same pattern that you can see I've already started on either side of the door, and I priced it out. I know how much it's going to be, and now I just got to slowly save up for that. Just something that frames the front yard a little bit better and gives it like a finished look. So I'm thinking also maybe plant a simple line of flowers right along the edge in front of that. So it sort of gives us a sidewalk in front of the house. I do have an issue with strangers coming up to my window. I know this is so weird. I don't know why people do this. It's very odd to me. Um, and they'll look in my window. Now, I do have a mirrored film on that front window, but on occasion, people still come up and have put their hands on the window to look inside. I find it very strange. I don't know if it's because it looked like my house is abandoned because I had it decorated. Maybe that's what it was. Um, but I think putting that down will help tell people, no, you cannot come up to my window. That's rude and not appropriate. I've even had people with their dogs come up to my house and have allow their dog to relieve themselves on the front of my house. Has anyone ever experienced this? Aside from being that grumpy old guy on the block and screaming at people to get off my lawn, I'm trying to find a subtle no instead. Is that a good idea? I don't know. If you have any ideas, please, please, please put it down in the comments below. I've got to hear from you. You know, sometimes when you watch projects online, it feels like everyone is doing these giant transformations overnight. But in real life, look, most of us are just working project by project and season by season. And honestly, that's perfectly fine. So this year, especially, I'm really trying to lean into working within the budget we actually have instead of the imaginary one in my head. Can you relate? Which means picking one project, planning it well, and doing it thoughtfully. The good news is pavers are actually pretty affordable, and I've already measured everything out and priced what I need, what I'm going to need, what I already said, right? So if all goes according to plan, this might be a one trip to Home Depot kind of situation. Famous last words, but we're going to stay optimistic, friends. But for now, we're starting small. This little porch refresh, some chicken housekeeping, and whatever else the day decides to throw at us. So let's grab a coffee, hang out with me for a bit, and see how much progress we can make today. Let me know what you are working on. I want to hear from you and support you in today's journey. Okay, let's get going and let's get into our projects today. Let's decorate this porch. I'm so excited about this. Okay, so the chickens have officially kicked me out of the chicken workout dojo. So the plans have changed and we're going to need to do a minor pivot. This is real life, right? This is how it goes. But there's literally a full egg laying pile up thing going on. Everyone's mad at each other. I mean, it's pandemonium. It's total chaos in there. And if I go back in, they will absolutely boycott the entire process, which means nobody wins. So we're going to respect the ladies' privacy. But gosh, that front yard refresh is finished. And honestly, it's looking really cheerful out there. I've actually been enjoying people slowing down to look at the front yard as they pass. I mean, gosh, it's just been a rewarding little spring project officially checked off the list. At least until that Home Depot trip I was talking about earlier actually happens, because that is something I've got to go do. I'm just so fiending for it. Does anyone say that word anymore? Fiending? I don't know. That feels like an outdated term anyway. But since the chickens have declared that room temporarily off limits, we're going to pivot, as I was saying. So next stop, the office/studio. This room is about to get a little spring cleaning moment because we've got new blinds coming in soon. And before those go up, I want to freshen everything around the windows. So full spring cleaning moment here. We're taking down the drapes, painting the window trim white, cleaning the glass, and we're just going to simplify the whole space a bit. Now, look, I am not a minimalist. It's never going to happen. We're going to just lay that out there, full disclosure. But hey, you know what? Less clutter, more light, fresh start. Let's see what we can do in here. All right, while the paint dries and the office slowly recovers from the chaos we just created, why not start another project? Because clearly I didn't have enough going on today. We're attempting homemade tortillas. I found a recipe from a channel called Cooking con Claudia that looked really doable. And after watching both her short and the full recipe video, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. I'll link her video below in case you want to try these too. I'm not sure why tortillas have been such a struggle for me in the past, but after last week's croissant victory, I'm feeling a little bold. Those croissants came out so good. We were eating them all week. I even shared a few with the neighbors. So with that confidence still lingering, we're going to see if tortillas could be my next kitchen redemption story. So let's try it. Put in the comments below if you have any kitchen redemption stories you'd like to share. What has been a pain point thing for you to cook, and have you mastered it? I would love to hear about your triumphs as well. I have to say, these tortillas turned out way better than I expected. I was super nervous about this. Looking back, I probably left them on the pan a little longer than they needed because once they cooled, the edges got a little crispy. So next time, I'm going to pull them a bit earlier. But honestly, still a win. What I love about the recipe I found is that she actually has a few different tortilla versions on her channel. One of them even uses heavy cream instead of butter, which I'm really curious to try next time. Apparently, tortillas, I think, are my new kitchen experiment now that I'm starting to get the hang of it. So I made a quick lunch with these because why not? And then had to run out to the post office for a minute because real life always sneaks into productive days just like this. But once I got back, I was still very much in a cooking mood. You know those days once you start cooking, you kind of just want to keep going. Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me today. So I decided to get a head start on dinner and do a little weekend meal prep with a cauliflower mac and cheese. This was in my, I believe, winter Women's Day magazines. I just ripped it out. It's
So
maybe it
good.
was a spring one. I'm not sure. I don't know. Mac and cheese feels very winter to me. So, but cauliflower, uh, like screams spring to me for some reason,
Like
even though
allowing
I
to
think it's
re-roll
actually
it.
a winter vegetable. Okay, I digress. Nothing fancy, just one of those cozy
So good.
recipes that makes the house smell amazing and saves you from figuring out dinner later, not only today, but excuse me, over the next few days. And honestly, days like this are my favorite kind of productivity. It's where a bunch of small things just slowly, peacefully fall into place. This cauliflower mac and cheese situation turned out to be way easier than I expected, friends. Once I pulled all the ingredients out, it really became one of those throw everything in the pot and trust the process kind of meals, which honestly are my favorite kind of recipes. Can you relate? I did add a little habanero in there for some extra heat, That was absolutely not in the original recipe, but sometimes you just have to live a little. You know what I'm saying? So I'll link the recipe below though, because it came from the Women's Day magazine and it looked too good not to try. And if you notice, I'm also using a garbanzo bean pasta instead of regular pasta. Regular pasta and we're not friends. My stomach absolutely refuses to cooperate, so chickpea pasta it is. And I like this brand. I find that the texture of it really holds up really well. It doesn't get really mushy or weird after it's been cooked. So, just a little side note on that. But one thing I've learned about casseroles over the years is that, unlike croissants or tortillas, where you really need to follow the steps, casseroles are a lot more forgiving. You can mix things in a slightly different order, toss things together, adjust ingredients, and 9 times out of 10, it still comes out delicious. One pot meals are honestly one of the greatest domestic life hacks. You get dinner, you get leftovers, and you get fewer dishes staring at you for the next 3 days like they're judging your life choices, which, if you ask me, is a massive win. Also, if you're still watching at this point in the video, first of all, thank you for hanging out with me today. Truly, I appreciate it. Drop a little veggie emoji in the comments so I know you made it this far. Broccoli, avocado, your choice. And while you're there, give me your best casserole or one pot meal tip. What's your go to recipe when you want something easy that won't destroy the kitchen? Because somehow there are only 2 people living in my home, and yet we produce dishes like a small restaurant. So if you've cracked the code on that, please share with the class. All right, okay, this is going into the oven, and we're going to move on to the next project, friends. All right, the cauliflower mac and cheese is officially out of the oven, and the house smells incredible. You know those cooking days where you just didn't plan to cook a bunch of things, but somehow you end up in the kitchen most of the afternoon anyway? This was definitely today. And before I call it a night, I'm just going to do a quick reset in the bedroom. Nothing major, a little tidying, a quick vacuum, just enough so that tomorrow morning feels calm instead of chaotic. I've really started appreciating these little resets around the house. They're not big dramatic transformations. It's just small pockets of progress that slowly make everything feel lighter. And honestly, that's kind of how life works too, right? You don't have to overhaul everything all at once. Sometimes it's just a front yard refresh, a clean window, a new recipe that surprisingly works out, or a room that feels like a little more peaceful than it did this morning. Those little wins add up. So if today was one of those days where you got even one small thing done, I'd call that a success. Now I'm going to finish up tidying in here, listen to the chickens yelling about something outside, and enjoy the smell of dinner drifting through the house.